All right, one last item, and we've been following this case at ProFootballTalk.com. There haven't been many developments lately, but this week in the Robert Kraft solicitation of prostitution criminal prosecution, there was an offer made to dismiss the case in exchange for an acknowledgement that if there had been a trial, that he would have been found guilty. That's a non-starter, as reported by TJ Quinn of ESPN. Other reports, Kraft has said no, and here's why. You can't make that admission and expect to avoid any type of scrutiny or punishment under the personal conduct policy. If you emerge with a complete and total exoneration, then what can the commissioner do to you? But if you end up acknowledging that you would have been found guilty, and whatever the documentation is, however it's all written up, that ends up being a problem for you when the commissioner does what we assume he will do, which is hold an owner to a much higher standard than a player. Now, I still don't know what a player would get for this kind of infraction, but whatever it is, the owner gets more. If you get a full exoneration, you're less likely to get punished. If you do get punished, it won't be as severe as if you admit, yeah, I did it, you're just dismissing the case.
Right. Okay, so I guess the thing I want to ask you here with this is just, all right, so we've seen players in the past, though, be found not guilty, or there's no charges, or no, we're not going to press charges in the case, or we're the witness is unreliable and we can't move further with this case, and the NFL still suspends the player. So, do you think those guidelines fall true here with like a Robert Kraft, like the fact of like the protection of the shield?
Well, here's the difference. The cases where we've seen a player end up being suspended without any type of criminal prosecution all involve some form of violence or sexual assault. Ben Roethlisberger, allegations of sexual assault, never arrested, never charged, but he was suspended because there is that violence, that sexual assault component to it. Ray Rice is a different one. Ezekiel Elliott's the one I was thinking of. No arrest, suspended, domestic violence. So that's where I think it's different. And that's why I keep coming back to, if this was a player, and I mean, let's just call it what it is. For the infractions that we see that are attributed to players, they're all worse than this. And if a player did this, I don't think the punishment would be anything close to what we see when there is some act of violence for which a player is suspended or otherwise disciplined. So for something like this, if at the end of the day it is solicitation of prostitution and, it's a probation and a fine, and there's the human trafficking thing doesn't come into play with Robert Kraft. It was a pair of Florida residents that interacted with. I just don't think the punishment would be very significant for a player based upon the fact that the punishments we typically see involve crimes where there really is a victim who was on the wrong end of some sort of a violent confrontation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know, but I feel like they're always hard on the players, so I don't know if I buy that all the way.
When has there been a play?
I don't know.
The last one I can think of was Eugene Robinson the night before Super Bowl
33. For solicitation of prostitution,
and
right.
that was so long ago. That was even before the personal conduct policy existed.
Yeah, so I know. We've really never had this instance, so I don't know what to say about it either. But I guess the other thing I want to ask you, because I know you know better than me, like, how do you even put in the plea of not guilty right now when they say there's video evidence? Like, that, to me, just
you're always not guilty. There's rarely, if ever, does a criminal defendant, when he or she is being arraigned, get up and say guilty. Because you force the state to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And one of the developments yesterday, and this came from the New York Times, a motion to suppress all evidence in the case. Now, one thought is that's in order to keep this stuff secret so it doesn't come out in public, because there's a videotape of what went on in the room. But I also think there's going to be a challenge made to the legality of the taping process, which goes to the legality of the evidence. And if the evidence ends up not being admissible, you can't prove the case. If there's no video, you can't prove the case. And even with the video, you got to prove that there was solicitation. I don't know how they're going to prove there was solicitation if all they have is video of a sexual act. That doesn't prove that it was illegally solicited with a promise to pay money on the other side of it. And even if money changed hands on the other side of it, that doesn't mean there was a promise. It could have just been a gift. And it sounds funny, but it's serious. That's real. You have to be able to prove every element of the case. And one of the key elements of the case is that there was some sort of solicitation. That's the name of the crime. So there's flaws here. And if Kraft wants to fight this, there's a good chance he's going to win it, and he's going to get that exoneration.
Well, and there's some other rich, powerful people involved in them, too, where I just feel like this is going to be an uphill fight for the Florida district attorney.
Hey, look, I mean, somebody decided to take on a fight that is going to be a difficult one for the prosecution to win. That, and why else would they offer this deal where we'll just let it all go away like it never happened as long as you admit we would have won?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it sounds like they were wrong with the human trafficking aspect of this whole thing.
I haven't seen, I mean, they were wrong. There was none of the alleged victims of human trafficking were involved with Robert Kraft, and I've yet to see anything to suggest that they did bust up a human trafficking ring.
Yes, right. That's what I was referring to.
All right. That's it for today's PFTOT. But later today, Chris Sims Unbuttoned in the PFT PM co-branded podcast. He's got a, you know, I've been doing PFT Live for 8 bleeping years, and I don't have a mug. Hey, Casey, I want my mug.
They like me better. Bye. I mean, that's not shocking.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.